chasing a feeling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Tara Martini, along with Becky McNadden. We are glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
Okay, we say this every week.
Yeah, we do.
We do. Everybody listening, call us out. Tara, I'm super excited for our show today, though.
Me too.
We have a guest joining us today, Calvin Hedberg, who is a local hypnotherapist. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. It's so cool to have you here. You're going to share all about this incredible therapeutic opportunity and modality. We are going to thank you in advance for our 1,004 questions that we're about to ask.
Fire away. I'll be ready for them.
Okay. And as we get started, tell us about you.
Yeah, so my name's Calvin Hedberg. I'm a hypnotherapist, and I'm actually local and native to Minnesota. I've been living in Minnesota pretty much my entire life.
Okay.
I went away for college to Wisconsin, and I'm back here. I love it. I'm close to family, and I just really love the scenery and everything else around here. So it's been a great time. And I originally started out actually as an engineer. That was kind of what I studied for, but working in the healthcare sector was kind of one of those things where you kind of see more of the business side. You don't get to work directly with people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I ended up wasn't really satisfied and kind of had some vocal talent or wanted to chase some vocal talent. At one point, I wanted to kind of be a voice actor or do some voiceover work.
You do have an amazing voice.
Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So it kind of led down a road of, creative language, using your voice. Hypnosis popped up. I just really took to it right away. I enjoyed working with people. I enjoyed doing sessions with people. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then I finally found a school that could actually get me training, state licensed degree and all this other things that could get me towards working as a full-time job. So I ended up just kind of going through the training, and then here I am. I mean, I think I started it last year, and then once I completed the program, I was just ready to go, ready to jump into it. Yeah.
Wow.
That is so great.
That is
and
amazing.
kind of a second career. But Tara can resonate with doing a career and that path sort of leading you to another thing, which is it something you used, hypnotherapy, that you've done yourself before you became a person who offered it to other people? Yeah.
So one of the ways that I kind of connected with it is the people I would kind of practice with or do sessions with. I kind of found that sometimes you could give a lot of really helpful suggestions to kind of really boost their self-confidence, boost their self-esteem, those sorts of things. You can kind of just really kind of build people up. It's like a lot of people just have a hard time believing in themselves, and sometimes even they're skeptical. They're like, can I be hypnotized? Can I actually do hypnosis? I don't think I'm going to be a very good subject or a very good person for this. And then they surprise themselves. And then you can just even add in a few languages, just really boost them up and be like, you got this. You're doing a great job. You did so well. And you'd be surprised how much people light up and just have a lot lighter step and a lot more pep in their step after they just kind of have even those small wins, right? So you can really do a lot with people just in that regard of just giving them positive affirmation that way.
It can be very empowering.
Yeah. So
how do you define it? How do you define hypnotherapy?
Yeah. So hypnotherapy really, in essence, is kind of making established communication with the subconscious mind using the natural hypnotic state. It is a natural state that people go into. It's kind of a learning state. So it's kind of using that subconscious mind state to affect positive change. And usually a lot of that time, that change is coming from the person that you're working with. Obviously, you kind of want to do a full intake, get their own words, get their own goals, and kind of feed them back to it. Feed them back to the person when they're in that hypnotic state so they can really take to it. Yeah. Without the conscious mind or that inner critic kind of saying that they can't or saying that that's not possible or that's not true. A lot of people, when they're in the hypnotic state, they're more open to kind of accepting suggestion. And a lot of the time, especially as a hypnotherapist, you're using their own suggestions, their own wants, their own desires, their own goals, and just kind of giving it back to them in a creative way or in a way when they're already in a learning state, when they're in that hypnotic state.
That makes so much sense. Wow. I can completely see how the subconscious wouldn't have the same mental blocking of our own dialogue with ourselves. Well, we're talking hypnotherapy today, everybody. Such an important topic. Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned as we further explore hypnotherapy and really what this looks like. We're asking all of the questions, everybody. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We're going to be back in just a moment.
From nobody else, all you got to do now. In a world full of strangers, you don't know who to trust. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I'm Tara Martini with the fabulous Becky McNadden. Let's dive right back into our discussion on hypnotherapy.
I feel like we have so many different thoughts and questions about a topic, and part of what I really want to get at today is some of these myths around around even the concept. I think there might be listeners right now, and we'll dive into that in a little bit, but there might be listeners who have a thought or an image that comes to mind right away when they even hear the word hypnotherapy. So I'd love, Calvin, for you to first tell us, what is hypnosis? What is it? And then how does hypnotherapy work?
Yeah, so hypnosis is just a very, really concentrated state of mind. It's a natural state of mind that people go into every day. You know, sometimes you're driving and kind of lose track of time, but you've kind of still been working and doing everything. It's like a very pointed state of mind in which you're kind of just really directing thought towards either where somebody is guiding you or giving you suggestions for, or overall just kind of visualizing within your own mind and getting to a place where you can really just kind of improve. I mean, it's really just affecting positive change, seeing your goals, working towards your goals, giving suggestion that way. But I guess, hypnosis, when people really think about it or see it, they always think of a swinging pocket watch or a stage show or somebody, clucking like a chicken is the classic one.
Yes.
People are kind of afraid that it's going to be something where you're going to just like blank out, not remember, or like, it's going to be some scary thing where you're not going to know what's happening. But a lot of the time, it's really just a really focused state of mind where you're going to get more internally, more reflective towards your inside and towards your thoughts. You might have a little bit of dissociation with your body and not really pay attention to where your body is. But it's really, really, it can be very conversational. It can be very easy that way. And it's something where you're going to remember the whole session. You're going to be conscious, you're going to be actively participating. It's something where you meet the facilitator or meet the hypnotist halfway. Okay. It's never something that's automatic or happens without your consent, your control. You're always in control. You're always conscious. You're going to remember the whole session. And it's kind of just like lowering the threshold for wanting to follow suggestion or go along with things.
Okay.
Yeah, think about it that way.
Well, what you're saying makes me think about hypnotherapy isn't a tuning out, which is what some people might think of, a losing of control. It really is a tuning in to the subconscious part of you.
Exactly.
With a huge intentionality and thoughtfulness versus kind of leaving ourselves.
And I think if people looked at it that way, there would be less fear and apprehension around it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great point. I'm sure you get all sorts of apprehensions, fears, maybe even anxiety about doing it. What kinds of things do you hear from people around that?
Yeah, a lot of the time they're just really worried that they're kind of going to be out of control or that somebody else's thoughts are going to kind of be dominant in that way. They're just kind of really, really afraid that they're out of control in some way or shape. People don't like to give up control in that way, but a lot of the time you really want to work to empower a client or a subject to make sure that they know that they're in control the whole time. They can end the session anytime they want. They can reject suggestion at any time. It's not like what I say goes, right? In fact, that's why we also do a long intake to make sure that we're getting their own words and especially, getting their own goals and not trying to interject anything that, that we believe is best for them. It's you're working with them, and when you feed back somebody their own words, their own suggestions, they're a lot more likely to kind of take them, go along with it, and feel comfortable and safe. Because, just feeling safe and comfortable is the biggest part. You want to build rapport, get to know your client, get to know who you're doing a hypnosis session with, and then just really make them feel like they're fully in control, because they are the entire time. And like I said, they can reject suggestion. They can just kind of steer it a different way. They can even talk. People are like, can I talk in hypnosis? Yes. In fact, we're going to have a full conversation a lot of the time. A lot of the modalities we use, we're going to be talking the entire time. Yeah.
Well, and it makes me think about the imagery you mentioned, a swinging pocket watch or something like that. I think not only do people consider I'm losing control, there's an added part of you're controlling me.
Right.
And I don't like that.
Yeah. And it could be further from the truth.
And you're saying, not one bit. There's reciprocity. There's even interaction. We're verbalizing with each other. So in the same way that there are thoughts about even what psychotherapy is, Tara and I talk often about how the imagery we get on what it looks like to be in therapy really isn't what it actually looks like. You're saying, yeah, you see the pictures, you maybe have the thoughts, but that isn't what a session looks like.
Yeah. So wondering, now that you've kind of looked at, well, what are the fears and things that are common, whether it's through movies or social media that it's been portrayed, but what sorts of things do people seek you out for?
Yeah, so a lot of time with hypnotherapy, at its simplest, it's either you're trying to make a new habit or break an old habit.
Okay.
And that's pretty broad, right? But I mean, you can look at it. Some people come to you because they can't put down smoking, or they, more likely now vaping or nicotine pouches, those sorts of things. Sometimes they just have a hard time. It becomes automatic. Whenever they hit a stressor, whenever they hit that thing that kind of pushes them towards that substance, it's automatic. They just reach for the pack. They reach for the can. And they kind of lose that conscious choice. It becomes a subconscious behavior. And that's where hypnotherapy shines. You can kind of let people know and have them kind of lock in on that and consciously be more aware of when they're making that decision, so they can actually take back control of making a conscious decision. Not only kind of giving them probably some relief from that original stressor, right? Actually looking in and diving into what that original stressor is, but also giving them visualizations of the future of making that right choice, and especially just bringing back conscious control to make the choice, right? Because a lot of times those things become automatic. So making or breaking a habit. So sometimes people are in a habit they want to change, or sometimes they want to get towards things like weight loss, or the things where they might be like, I really wish I was more diligent at my hobby, or I really wish I was more confident to chase my hobby or my dream, those sorts of things. You can kind of give people those visualizations and help build subconscious habits. So it's less about them having to constantly reset or restart or try to keep everything steady. If their subconscious mind and their conscious mind are aligned to the same goal, things happen a lot faster.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
I can feel Tara's mind kind of like having these like spark explosions.
Yes.
I mean, we know each other very well, and it is kind of this. So what I'm hearing is that people might say, I have a problem, and they might not even know that it's a pattern they want to change or as a habit that they want to change. Would they need to know, hey, this is something that I really want to do differently when they come in to meet with you, or do you help them figure that out?
Yeah, so we usually figure it out. I mean, first and foremost, hypnosis requires informed consent, right? They have to want to change. They have to actually interact. Like I said, it is something where they need to meet you halfway. So they need to come in wanting to change and wanting to affect change. But a lot of the time, the thing that they originally thought was the issue might not be the real issue. It's a lot of times you can dig deeper, and the subconscious mind is really good there, because the conscious blocker or what they think is the issue can go so much deeper, especially when you get them into the hypnotic state and they're kind of letting their thoughts and their emotions flow a little more freely. You can dig deeper. I think a lot of times they say addiction, especially things like substance. The substance isn't the problem; it's the solution to the deeper issue. The deeper,
it's the
either emotional.
Why are they drinking or smoke?
Yeah, so there's usually like an emotion. Sometimes you can go even far back. There's a method or a modality called regression, where you can go back as far as childhood, to where you kind of return to a memory where somebody had a sensitizing event, or sometimes a sensitizing relationship. With, a parent, an uncle, a sibling. And you can kind of go back as far as that, and you'll see that the way they reacted, or the way that they were admonished, or the way that played out back then can have impacts on how they perform and how they actually respond to things in present day or in their adult life. And it's pretty wild. So yeah, people will come usually with some idea of what they want to change, but it can evolve. In a session.
And a recognition that you touch on what our experiences are shape us. We talk about that on the show all the time, and we aren't necessarily even aware how it's shaped us.
Right.
We just know it has, especially as you talk about those childhood experiences. This would allow us access back to that, to really think about how was I imprinted and how does that shape me currently.
Yeah, and you can see it from an adult perspective, or from a little more wisdom, because back then that loop recorder or that scene is playing on repeat in the back of their mind somewhere.
Yes.
Right, and you sometimes need to break that loop and transform it into like a better instance, or sometimes it involves acceptance and forgiveness of the person who was the transgressor, or the person in that who kind of led you towards that behavior, or led that towards that belief of yourself. Because a lot of time, nothing's going to change until you choose to change it.
Right.
And a lot of time, people don't know where to start, where to look, or how to go about affecting that change. And hypnotherapy can be very helpful for that.
This reminds me so much. We just did a show recently on different modalities like ART and brain spotting and EMDR. So much of what Amy said with ART of replacing that with a different memory.
Yes.
With the wallpaper.
Yes.
And just,
it's
fascinating.
I've heard people say things around hypnotherapy like, I'm not sure this will work on me. And you referenced this even in the first segment that we had, that people are kind of, I'm not sure that that's for me. Is hypnotherapy something that anybody can do?
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that is a preventer from actually being hypnotized is if you can't understand what I'm saying. So if there, sometimes the language barrier, or sometimes people just like don't have the mental capacity to actually process language. Those are like the only exceptions. Everybody else, I promise you, you can be hypnotized. You can go into the hypnotic state. Some people are like, oh, well, I have trouble focusing. I have like ADHD. There are methods for that. There are ways. It's not a blocker. The biggest blockers are fear and not feeling safe or comfortable.
Wow.
And then especially, there's the language barrier, the understanding barrier. But everybody else, I promise you, you can be hypnotized. It's very easy. I think some people have misconceptions about, am I hypnotized or was I hypnotized? And they're like, I remembered the whole thing. I couldn't have been hypnotized. Or,
good point.
Or like they're like, oh, I didn't feel this profound feeling that I'm supposed to feel with hypnosis. And it's like, no, it can be very easy and it can be very subtle, But I promise you, we usually do a thing called deepening by realization, where we'll point out something that you didn't realize, some like sort of shift mentally or physically that you now realize, oh my gosh, stuff did shift. I was in a different mental state. Yeah.
Wow.
Which this is a good transition to, like how you said, like, wait, I didn't have this profound, thing. What are the myths around hypnotherapy?
Good question.
Yeah. So some people think, that hypnotherapy is going to be, just like every other therapy, that you're not always going to have a breakthrough right away. Not to say that a single session can't be helpful or set you on the right path. I mean, you can affect very serious change within one session, but a lot of the times it takes what's kind of called just kind of persistence, right? Where you're kind of going with it. A lot of the times hypnotherapists will give you tools to do self-hypnosis.
Okay.
Right? Where you can continue the work or continue kind of some of the things that we worked on in session at home. A lot of the time you're going to be most effective with self-hypnosis or just kind of going through with kind of working with some of the techniques that we give you kind of just as a routine, either before you go to bed at night or right away when you wake up. And so, change has to come from you. A lot of hypnosis, pretty much all of hypnosis is what we call inside out, right? We as facilitators are working with you to kind of give a path towards change, but everything comes from you. You are, everything that happens during a hypnosis session is happening in the client or the subject's mind. And, that's kind of where that same feeling of like, we're not controlling you, right? We're
Sure.
giving you the tools. It's up to you to follow. We're leaving those breadcrumbs for you to follow. We're leaving those suggestions for you to follow, but it's up to you ultimately. So a lot of the time people are like, well, you failed as a hypnotist, like I didn't change. And it's like, well, the change has got to come from you. You have to come at it with good faith and come at it earnestly and then continue to work on it from there on out. And if you need additional sessions, that's great. If you can continue to practice self-hypnosis on your own time, that's also excellent. Eventually we want to make ourselves obsolete in our clients' lives. Yeah.
So there is self-hypnotherapy.
Yeah. There is a lot of self-hypnosis in terms of just kind of eliciting that hypnotic state and giving yourself suggestions or setting an intention before you put yourself into that state. Yeah.
Yeah. Say more about self-hypnosis.
Yeah. So one of the places that I think it really describes it well is there's an article from the Cleveland Clinic on self-hypnosis, and they even describe a step-by-step technique that you can do as well.
Really?
Yeah. But overall, self-hypnosis is just kind of eliciting that hypnotic state. It's very similar to meditation.
Okay.
Meditation is kind of producing that mindfulness and kind of a lot of time just taking a break and trying not to think about anything. But when you're doing self-hypnosis, you're basically kind of putting yourself into that meditative state, that trance state, or that hypnotic state with a specific goal or intention. And sometimes writing that goal and intention before you start your self-hypnosis session, or simply thinking about it intensely. Some people do mantras. Some people, will just think it to themselves a few times. But ultimately, when you're doing self-hypnosis, you're putting yourself into a hypnotic state with a goal or an intention. Yeah.
Wow.
And how would people know if they were doing self-hypnosis that the change was shifting or that the change was occurring? Do they become aware of the kind of subconscious movement?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time when you're doing self-hypnosis, it's just kind of, you're going to kind of notice things in your body. Everyone kind of, when they go into a trance state, can notice different things right away. Mm-hmm. Like when I go into hypnosis, I kind of notice that I lose track of my hands and feet right away. Your hands and feet are really sensitive, right? They have a lot of nerve endings.
Yes.
It's a lot of mental input, a lot of mental processing to process all the things you're feeling with your hands and feet. I lose that like right away when I go into the hypnotic state. But when people are kind of working towards their goals, they're going to see it more subtly day by day, right? Like I said, with kind of the subconsciously reaching for a pack of cigarettes or things like that, you're going to start noticing more those things that are normally automatic.
Wow.
And that's kind of like your indicators, like, oh, wow, no, I made a different choice today, or no, I actually caught myself before I did this behavior.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those things that you're going to start noticing more.
So
and more.
Is part of the work that people might do with you, you teach them self-hypnosis too?
Absolutely.
Huh.
This is just mind-blowing.
I'm not laughing at it. I'm like laughing kind of that's in the therapeutic world, we talk about skills that people would learn in sessions that allow integration into daily life. It makes total sense that someone would come to a hypnotherapy session and learn a way to apply that or integrate it into their daily lived experience as well, which is hugely empowering. Mm-hmm. I can see then people saying, oh, I have some agency to shift or change something in my life that's bothering me.
Yeah. One of my more recent clients that I had, we used a technique, what's known as an anchor and a trigger. And one of the things that this can be used for is to kind of be used as repetitiously on your own time, even after the session ends, right? To continue to do that. So an anchor and trigger is basically a physical action that you do. Some people fold their hands. Some people put their hand over their heart, other things like that. A physical action and then a phyphrase that you either say aloud or think to yourself. And what that does is it's basically a connection or a bridge or a reminder back to the session when you were in a deep hypnotic state or when you were in a different mind state or mental state.
Okay.
And it can basically be a physical action and a reminder that returns you to that state, or at least reminds you of that state. And it's a way that you can kind of produce that in times of stress or in times of wanting to continue to practice and work with that change that we created during the session. So like some people, when they hit their stressor at work, right, they fold their hand, they fold their hands, put their hand over their heart, and they say their phrase, and their body relaxes, and their mind kind of clears, and they kind of can have a quick reset in the middle of the day.
Wow.
Yeah, so those sorts of things. So,
and you would help identify the anchor in sessions.
Actually, the subject or client comes up with it themselves, and usually we don't agree on it beforehand. We say you'll come up with that action and that phrase yourself when the time is right, and you'll be surprised. Your mind comes up with stuff that you surprise yourself with what you come up with, what word resonates with you in the moment, and especially what action resonates in the moment. But it can be very powerful because then it's kind of a little tool that you have in your tool belt now. If you ever feel stressed, or you feel yourself reaching for that pack or reaching for that tin again, you just stop, do your action, do your anchor, do your trigger, and calm yourself down, or kind of take back that control to choose. Yeah.
Which again goes back to one of the myths of this loss of control that you have, where in fact it sounds like this is such an empowering thing, where your mind is actually selecting this. It is you who is doing this, you the patient, not someone else choosing these things for you.
Yeah.
Which is all the more reason to do it.
Exactly. That's why we like the term facilitator. We're helping. It's kind of like you're driving a car, right? You're still at the wheel. You're still in control of the vehicle. You can decide how fast, how slow, where you turn, where you go. And then it's like your hypnotherapist or your facilitator is in that passenger seat, right? Holding the map, holding the GPS, kind of saying like, here's where you wanted to go. Here's where I think is the best way we can get there. But ultimately, the person is still driving. They still make the turns. They still make all the decisions. And if at any point they wanted to stop the car and ask you to get out, they can, So
that's a beautiful metaphor. It resonates with like what might a session feel like. You mentioned a couple of different methods that you use. Are there other things that you do in sessions that you could tell us about? Yeah.
So you mentioned EMDR, which is kind of a really, really fun therapy that is kind of getting worked on here. And a lot of what we do is we use eye movement as well.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a concept. It's very much similar to kind of waking suggestion, right? Where you're already kind of working on getting somebody to just focus on motion of, of a finger as it goes back and forth, and kind of delivering suggestions or delivering things. And what we found is that is a good way to prime a session, to get them ready to go into hypnosis, because it's already kind of a way where they're already focusing on something, they're receiving suggestion. It can also kind of help lower heightened emotion.
Okay.
And make people feel safe, because, like I said, if we're going to deal with more heavy topics or more like getting through repressed memories, people can be really, really hesitant to want to open that up and work with that. And eye movement can be very, very helpful in getting that and getting people ready to kind of actually dive deeper and work on kind of healing a memory, right? Or trying to get towards that regression. But some other ones we do is called parts. Parts is very, very interesting. Parts is one where you can actually identify if people are conflicted in some way. They're like, I want to do better, but there's this part of me that's
some
nagging.
Sort of ambivalence.
Yeah. What you can do is you can identify different parts of somebody's kind of wants and desires, or kind of different parts that are kind of in their mind. And really, it's just kind of like lenses people think through or look through or pass through. And the funny part is with parts, you can actually get somebody in the hypnotic state and have them stand behind each of those lenses and have an internal dialogue with themselves to actually gestalt and actually get through through a conversation, or kind of work through that argument, that internal argument they're having.
Yeah. And
it sounds funny to talk to yourself while you're in the hypnotic state, but I promise you it feels so much more natural than you could have expected. I've gone through this several times, and it's really, really interesting, because it is just different lenses that you look through, different ways that you try to look out and take care of yourself. But those different parts of you can be conflicting, and that can cause a lot of extra stress or issues for yourself if you don't resolve that. And this gives you a great arena to do it.
Well, in the psychotherapy realm, we have lots of theories rooted in exactly what you're talking about, that parts of self, accessing parts of self. In the work that I do, as in writing, we dialogue with parts of self, or dialogue between parts of self. In your sessions, you're enacting that. People are engaging. Their parts of self are talking to each other, speaking to each other. Maybe even, I love even the thought of standing behind the other part of self and seeing the world from that viewpoint. How much that would give us insight into our own inner conflict, or the perspective shift on just how complex we are. That ambivalence is a real thing. It's because stuff is complicated, and if movement were just so easy, we would just do it. So that's really cool.
Yeah, like different ego states as well. Like the inner child, inner parent, the inner parent that kind of like sets the rules and what you should do. The inner child that says what I want, what I desire. And there can be conflict between those. So those sorts of things. And yeah, even with parts, you kind of usually give them a job, or give them like a name, a title. And like, what do you do for me? Well, I keep you safe. What do you do for me? I keep you on track for your goals. We have a conflict here.
Yes.
Let's work it out. Let's talk it out. And by the end of it, sometimes even those jobs transform and those names transform. You might give that part of you that's trying to keep you on track, like, Mr. Strict. Might be the name, and then the other one's like laziness, and you're like, all right, these are mean names. We've figured out, we've gone through this conflict resolution. What are we now? It's like, okay, now we have, responsibility, and now we have comfort.
Yeah.
As these two that you realize, okay, these guys aren't out to get me. They're not out to hurt me. It's part of me. They're all part of me, and I want them all working for me, not against me. Yeah, and you realize that you can give them a lot, more, just like nice views, nice visualizations of like, oh no, these parts of me are all working for my best intention.
Yeah, and helps offer grace to those parts of self, and they're doing what their role is. And life is very complicated, so there's going to be tension and conflict periodically between various roles trying to do their thing.
Yeah.
So could you walk us through, if one of us was your client or patient, a typical we had never done hypnotherapy before. Walk us through like a typical first session where we're going to begin that for the first time.
Sure. So it always starts with, how do you want to use your time? What have you set up the session for today? So you kind of come to me with an issue initially, and then we talk through that in depth. A lot of the time we're talking through, and this is before any hypnosis happens, right? This is all just us talking, because I need to have all these
like
things.
Like an intake.
Exactly. It is an intake. So clients will start with an intake. And we'll talk about a lot of the context around the issue. When is it a problem? With who is it a problem? How often do you see it? what do you feel in terms of like, does it make you angry, frustrated? When you find yourself in the midst of this issue, what do you believe about yourself? I'm lazy, I'm irresponsible, I'm undisciplined. These types of things. You want to find the emotions, the beliefs, the context around that issue. Mm-hmm. And then we even work with something called the felt sense as well. Sometimes people feel it in their body even. Like some people when they get really nervous or they kind of clam up, they feel something like tightness in their throat or tightness in their chest.
Yeah, what kind of physical sensations are associated? Exactly,
and those can be used as a pretty good measure at the end of the session to figure out what's changed, what's loosened, what's different in the body. So a lot of it is that intake, and that intake can be a long time, right? It can be almost half the session, if not more, where you're trying to get everything around this issue. And then if you're brand new to hypnosis, I'll obviously explain what hypnosis is, go through some of the misconceptions, make sure you feel safe and comfortable with the idea, with the state, and don't have any uncertainties in terms of what's going on. And then sometimes we'll do what's called receptivity tests, where or receptivity exercises, where we walk through and just kind of give you an example, some like a quick 2 minutes of kind of what you're going to start feeling or what sorts of things you might imagine. Because sometimes I need to work with different thought modalities, because sometimes people are more akin to auditory or visual or touch or sensation, and I want to be able to describe things and get them more introspective or kind of get their mind working a little bit quicker. And if I'm trying to describe something really visual, and they're not a visual person or aphantasia, it's not going to be as effective. So sometimes I need to learn how to best work with them
Makes
before
total
we even
sense.
begin.
Well, it's learning what type of learner they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's all part of the intake. And then after we've kind of gone through it all, I'll determine kind of a course of what we should do within the hypnotic state, whether we're going to work with parts, whether we're going to do regression, whether we're just going to do kind of visualization of the future and suggestion and kind of give them an anchor and trigger for them to work with. So whatever kind of is determined to kind of help with that issue, I'll explain to them the modality I'm going to use. And then we go into the hypnosis session after that. So it is...
How long is this? Because that seems like a lot of stuff you're doing, so more than an hour, I'm assuming.
So sessions are typically 2 hours. So, intake will be about half of that. And then hypnosis will be probably the remainder. But obviously there's some stuff that you do before you go into the hypnotic state, and then you have some stuff afterward. You want to talk and give them a chance to describe what they felt, during the session, describe how they felt change or shifts happening. And especially look back at that felt body sense and say, what's changed, what's different, how do you feel... How do you feel following that? So it is kind of like a intake, hypnosis, and then kind of like post-discussion.
Yeah, reflective time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And would every subsequent session also be 2 hours?
Generally,
okay.
Yeah. I think you can go, I usually go as short as 1 hour if that's all I think we need to up or to follow up. But generally sessions are around 2 hours, yeah.
And is there a typical timeline as far as on average it's 4 to 7 sessions?
Oh, I bet there's a lot of people wondering that.
Yeah. Or is it just it's individualized by the client?
It's individualized by client, but I think typical anywhere from 1 to 4 sessions is about all you'd really need.
So it's short.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If things go way deeper, if you open up other additional issues that you want to kind of start a course on, things can branch, but for an individual specific issue, 1 to 4 sessions.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they find in that 1 to 4 sessions that there's they notice movement.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like I said, you'll usually notice it right away. I mean, one session can be very, very transformative and really set you on the right path of going, okay, I need to start being less harsh on myself. I need to start setting my goals. I need to be more mindful of and conscious of my goals and what I want to do, how I want to change. Right, because no one's going to change but you, but this is a really good way to help you on that path. So a lot of people, after one session, already kind of know how they want to continue towards that change or towards that goal. We're really just trying to give you the tools. And that's why, like I said, eventually I want to be obsolete in my client's life, right? I want to give them the tools to do it themselves. So,
and I'm assuming hypnotherapy is usually private pay then, so people are paying for this, which could be a potential barrier to the experience. But is that what you find, that it's private pay for each session?
It's generally private pay, but there are opportunities for referrals from a licensed counselor or a psychiatrist, or even from doctors or medical. There are times where I might work with somebody for chronic pain management, and as long as I'm working under a referral from a physician, right? To make sure that we're not doing additional harm by having them ignore or shut off those pain signals, which it's very helpful. As long as we have that referral and there's kind of a diagnosis involved and medical staff involved, at that point in time we can do kind of super bill or other things like that they can submit to their insurance or their HSA, FSA, those sorts of things. So you can work in conjunction with, doctors, dentists, psychiatrists, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunity for that. Which hypnodontics and everything else we haven't even gotten into yet. So there is opportunity for it to be kind of medical necessity. There can be letters of medical necessity.
Okay.
And other things that kind of work it more towards insurance-based or other things where it's not just out of pocket or other types like that. Yeah.
Cool.
So other than, when I think of this modality, I think of working with people with trauma or quitting, a bad habit. What are some other things that you could go to hypnotherapy for?
Yeah. So
for people out there who are like, what else?
So there's an entire medical sector of this that is very helpful. Like I said, with chronic pain management is a big one. Some people have overactive nerves, or I think it's sciatica is like one of the other ones where it's not technically like any physical damage. It's overactive nerves, and that brain signal, that body-mind connection, can actually be profoundly affected with hypnosis. So you can kind of tune out or lower that signal and prevent that chronic pain. So working in conjunction with that, there's hypnodontics, which is working with dentists and other things like that. There's some people who just have a gripping fear, right, of going to the dentist. They can't sit still or relax in the chair for the hour it takes to do the procedure. There's entire hypnodontics where you are working with clients to help get them into a relaxed hypnotic state before they go to their appointment or even stay with them during their appointment.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. In medicine, too, people go through dialysis, right? Some patients have a ton of issues just sitting through that long life-saving procedure, that necessary procedure.
Yeah.
So there are people who partner there. There's people who partner with memory care and geriatrics to help them get through a daily routine or sometimes even to get to sleep at night. So there's a lot of different specialties, modalities. There's people who work, like I said, with, really, really in conjunction or under referral of other medical professionals.
Wow. It makes so much sense to me. I never knew this.
No.
So you have your own business. Tell us about your business and how people could get a hold of you if they wanted to.
Yeah. So my business is Hedberg Hypnotherapy, and you can reach me at my website, www.hedberghypnotherapy.com.
Okay.
And from there is a link to all my socials. And including my YouTube channel as well, HH Hypnosis.
Okay.
Which I'll be adding some additional, if you want to kind of hear, right now I have a 5-minute relaxation audio up if you really were curious about what it felt like or kind of how hypnosis can kind of work, and especially just how easy it can be.
Kind of some of that insight into self-hypnosis.
Yeah, even that. And I also mentioned, the Cleveland Clinic. Clevelandclinic.org has a self-hypnosis one that I find very, very helpful. If anyone's curious, you can go to there as well. So that's health.clevelandclinic.org, and they have a really helpful article for self-hypnosis.
Okay.
And so on that YouTube channel, I just started it recently, and I'm going to be adding more and more on there about different kind of questions and topics, just like we're answering right now. Kind of help people get more familiar with the modality, more familiar with it, and hopefully a lot more comfortable with it, kind of break down that stigma that media and everything else is built up, because I think it's a wonderful modality, and it's a great help, and a lot of people could really, really benefit from it. So I'm really hoping to kind of get more people interested and get more people to a point where they feel comfortable helping themselves.
Yeah, well, it sounds like even if people had a question, if our listeners are sitting there today and there's questions that we didn't get to, they could email you on your website or contact you on your website.
Certainly.
That might give you some ideas for your YouTube channel too. So, hey, listeners, if you have an idea of what Calvin might put on his YouTube channel, do that. And how soon could they get in with you if they wanted to?
Yeah, right now I've got plenty of openings, so I could see you as soon as this week. A lot of the time it's pretty wide open at the moment. So I'm accepting new clients, and it's one thing where if you want to send me any sort of messages, any sort of questions, there's a form on my website. You can also reach me at hedberghypnotherapy@gmail.com with any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them or make some videos or content about it.
This has
Perfect transition.
This has been exceptional. I feel like I have so much to think about.
I know.
We're going to head to a commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk through your questions, listeners, specifically about hypnotherapy. Feels Out Loud will process your thoughts in just a moment.
Yeah.
again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our beautiful listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. Of course, follow us on social media as well. We really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
And to everybody who had a question about hypnotherapy or a concept that they were thinking about, people who really were interested in sharing with us what the ideas that come to mind about hypnotherapy, thank you for sending those in. And we had several that we had to choose from, but the questions that we picked today, I feel like could be themed up in some of the things that came from our listeners. Our first listener was wondering, Calvin, I want to figure out if hypnotherapy might be a fit for me. I've tried other kinds of therapy, other treatments, but I haven't done hypnosis. How could I assess if it might be an option?
Yeah, so first and foremost, if you've found yourself kind of in a cyclical place, where you've tried to improve, tried to change, and it just keeps going right back to the same old behaviors, same old routine. If you find it being very cyclical,
great like point.
That's where hypnotherapy can be very, very helpful. And I think hypnotherapy is a great fit for that, because if you find yourself having trouble breaking out of those loops, breaking out of those routines, changing that habit to something more beneficial or something that serves you better, hypnosis is at that point a really good place to look into. And if you're kind of worried about, is hypnosis going to work for me? Can I be hypnotized? I assure you, you can. And if you're ever curious, there is a lot kind of out there in terms of audios or videos like even just on YouTube that you can kind of just get through a quick session. I'll be posting a lot on my YouTube channel as well if you're ever curious. But a lot of the time if nothing else really, it's kind of getting you out of that routine or that pattern.
Sure.
Hypnotherapy is a great place.
And I'm thinking about, for this specific listener, you mentioned this in the last segment and just said it again, that if you're wondering if it might work for you or you're not sure if it would work, take a look at some of your videos that you have on your website. That might give you a little more information. We've talked a lot on this show about do your research, read up about it online from reputable sources. As you mentioned, one resource, Cleveland Clinic, look for some places that might help you really make a decision. Our other listener, and we didn't get to this at all on the show, so I'm really glad that this listener brought this up. Can kids do hypnotherapy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something where obviously you need parent or guardian consent. A lot of the time you're going to want them to be kind of present as well. But it is something where kids can certainly be hypnotized. The limiter comes for how much they can sit and stay focused, right? You probably won't want to do it with, toddlers or somebody who's like still very much a developing mind, but I'd say like teenagers mostly, especially, can still benefit from this. And, as long as the person themselves, the kid themselves actually wants to do the work, wants to actively participate, understands and kind of gives that informed consent, along with, parent and guardian consent, they can certainly go through hypnotherapy.
Wow.
Well, and as you talked quite a bit in this show about self-hypnosis, I could see children really feeling empowered about some of those strategies on how to focus inward, on even that anchoring.
Yeah.
Some of those tools could be so helpful for kids realizing the activating moments and having a very direct and concrete tool to implement in that moment. That makes so much sense to me now. I didn't know any of that before the show, but I could see how that would be a very in alignment with work with kids.
Yeah, because kids need self-confidence. They need self-esteem especially, right? Teenagers, I mean, they deal with a lot, right? So it's a big time, a lot of change. So that self-confidence, that self-esteem, sometimes just kind of navigating kind of other parts in their life that are challenging because, they're growing up, they're figuring it out. As long as they have that ability to mentally focus and sit still and actually participate with you, they can benefit just as much.
This has been amazing. We're at the end of our show already for today. I can't wait to think about this more. Thank you, everyone, for listening this morning. And join us next week as we talk through more mental health-focused topics. But in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear, everyone. Share yourselves, friends.
Some go, some will, some won't. I wanna